What's up? I'm Coach Dan Blewett. In today's video, let's talk about good and bad stealing situations in softball. All right, so if you're new here, I'm Coach Dan. I'm a former pro baseball player. On my channel, I do tons of videos about softball overhand throwing mechanics, about the mental side of the game, strength training, arm care, all that stuff. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and stick around because I got lots more good content. So again, in today's video, we're going to cover good stealing situations versus bad stealing situations. I'm going to cover 4 big ones. And these are important to understand. And for all of you coaches and parents, it's good to let your kids make mistakes, all the while educating them on what good versus bad situations look like. So for me, when I was coaching my baseball and my softball teams in the past, we would just be like, look, here are the times where it's okay for you to go. You need to also know your own speed and your own limitations, because some players just aren't fast enough or don't get good enough reads to steal bases consistently. That can always improve, but from year to year, they need to understand how good they are and whether they have a good chance of making it or not. And then beyond that, say, look, these are the situations where it's going to hurt the team if you make this decision. Here's the time where it's going to be good for the team. So maybe you start to reduce the amount of signs that you give. Maybe you start to give them a little bit more free rein. That's up to you as coaches, but education is the first thing. All right, so let's jump into it. Here's the first one, and this is not as much a game situation as it is knowing the situation and your own strengths and weaknesses. So obviously in softball, you're not leading off. The jump is not as important really. What's important is your raw speed and the catcher's arm. So if you know the catcher doesn't have a great arm, or say you have an idea of when a pitcher is going to throw something off speed that's going to be in the dirt, or something that's going to be tough for them to get a good, to catch cleanly and to make a good throw on, and you feel like you have a very strong chance, like near 100%, then you can steal that base pretty much anytime you want. Coaches typically give the green light to players in situations like that, where like if you know you can make it, then go for it. However, third is the much more tricky one because it's a very short throw, and especially with the lefty up in the box, it becomes a very easy throw for the catcher. So stealing third is much more hazardous than stealing second, obviously. So you have to really have to know yourself whether you can do that. But again, this is something that's pretty tried and true. If you know you can get it, then go ahead. The next one, and this one is a little less, we'll cover the next two, or you may have heard, may not, but this one is trying to steal a run in a dead inning. So basically what this means is, say there's no one on and 2 outs, and you get on first base. The inning is it's pretty unlikely that you're going to score at this point, right? With 2 outs, no one on, now you have a runner on first. You still need a couple hits. So in situations like this, especially if you have good hitters on deck, so say like the leadoff hitter's up or the number 2 hitter's up, or if you get thrown out, it doesn't matter that much because you still have a really good spot of the order left. You might try to steal second. So now that you're on second with 2 outs, just a single is going to score you, depending on where it's hit and how hard it's hit. And now you kind of squeaked out a run in an otherwise dead inning. So again, if there's not much cooking, you got 2 outs, now you get on first base, it might make sense to try to steal second just to put yourself in scoring position in that otherwise dead inning. So that's a good, smart play if you have a pretty, like I said, and it does matter who's coming up in the order. So if it's like your 9-hole hitters up or your 8-hole hitters up, and you're going to steal in second and then leave the bottom of the order starting up again, it might not make as much sense. Sometimes you want to let that batter just play it out, either strike out or get a hit, or just finish their at bat, so that way the next inning the top of the order comes up. So those are other considerations in that. But again, the dead inning steal of second makes a lot of sense in a lot of situations. The next one, and these are the 2 big ones that are essentially traditional good versus bad stealing situations. Number 1 is stealing second with no one out. This makes sense because now you can manufacture a run, and that's really the crux of all this. When you steal second with no one out, now a fly ball to right field will allow the runner to tag up and go to third with 1 out, and then another deep fly ball will allow the runner to tag up and score. So now you've manufactured a run. You got no hits and scored because you got that runner into scoring position with no outs. Now, that's an important concept to understand, is being able to manufacture a run. Because again, whether it's a fly ball to right or a ground ball to second, that's going to allow you to go to third, and then the sac fly or just the ground ball to short or second is going to allow you to score. Giving your team a chance to manufacture runs with a steal is very important. And that's why this next one is also a good time to steal. So if you're on second with 1 out, it makes a lot of sense to try to steal third base with 1 out, because now if you've stolen third base with 1 out, guess what? A sac fly scores you, or a ground ball up the middle if they concede the run will score you, right? So that, again, puts you in a position to score a run without requiring a hit. Those are really smart steals, and it's really tough to defend against that, even if you have a stud pitcher pitching against you, because they can't necessarily strike everyone out, and they can't necessarily cause a pop-up on the infield. They might get, an otherwise like good result, which is like a ground ball to short, but because it's a ground ball to short, the runner's going to take off as soon as it leaves the bat, then she's going to score on that, right? So that's why these two stealing situations, stealing second with no outs or stealing third with one outs, they both allow you to manufacture a run, and that gives your team a huge boost, and it's demoralizing to the pitcher. So bad times to steal bases. Stealing third with 0 or 2 outs. And here's the reason why. Now, again, if you are like almost guaranteed to make it, like you just know, like this catcher's got a weak arm, I'm super fast, I can take this base, fine. But if you get caught in either of these times, it's a really dumb play, because stealing third with no one out is you're so far into scoring position already, you can already manufacture a run, right? So stealing third with no outs, sure, it gives you 2 chances now to get a sac fly or to get that ground ball up the middle to score you on just a ground ball, but you just don't really need that. So the risk and reward being on second, the likelihood you'll score on second with no one out is very high. So stealing third with no one out is just kind of like an unnecessary risk. The same thing with 2 outs. Stealing third with 2 outs, you're probably going to score on a base hit regardless, right? It's going to take a base hit to score you. You can't manufacture on with 2 outs. So it's going to require a base hit for you to score. So stealing third with 2 outs, you're already in scoring position. You're already going to be in motion as soon as the ball leaves the bat. So you're probably going to score on any single regardless. So the risk reward there doesn't make sense. And of course, I know people are going to leave comments say, well, you can score on a pass ball, or you could steal on score on a wild pitch. That's true. You can score more ways from third than from second. But again, the question is, if you're playing higher level softball where there's not that many pass balls and there's not that many wild pitches, but the catcher very well can throw you out stealing third, then I'm not sure the risk and reward is going to make a lot of sense there. Sure, if it's sloppy 11U softball and balls are constantly going to the fence and the likelihood of she throwing you out at third base is pretty low, then maybe it makes sense to steal third with 2 outs. Again, nothing is ever set in stone, but in quality softball where balls are not going to the backstop very often, teams are not making a ton of errors, the risk and reward of stealing third with 2 outs just doesn't make that much sense. So again, coaches, I think the takeaway here is that you should teach your players these scenarios. Lay it out for them. Show them this video, whatever it is, and say, look, these are the smart times and the less intelligent times to steal a base. And I think you should give them some free rein to play the game and build their baseball or their softball instincts, their softball IQ, so that they can learn the game by doing. If we only allow them to steal when we give them the sign and we're not explaining every sign we give because you just don't have time to do that, then they're not really learning the game. But for one summer, I gave one of my baseball teams, we didn't do signs. I said, these are the situations where you can do things. If you want to lay down a bunt, you can do it in these situations. These are not as good situations. If you want to steal a base, these are the times to do it. These are the times not to do it. And I gave them free rein, and sometimes they made the wrong move, and we talk about it. But in general, things worked out pretty well. That's not to say you shouldn't use signs, because I still think signs are valuable, but you can give your players a lot more free rein, especially the fast ones who will steal bases. Give them free rein, explain, and let them make smart decisions. They're smart. You don't have to control every aspect of the game as a coach, all right? So hopefully today's video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the description below, and I'll see you here in the next video.